You're listening to another episode of Battles with Bits of Rubber, the podcast about making prosthetics.
Hello, and in this episode of the podcast, I am talking to Tim Baggaley. Now, Tim plays the one-armed groom in Shaun of the Dead, and it was a nice time for me to just catch up with him, have a little chat, and go through, from his point of view, how it felt to be under all that stuff, and just a little bit about his work and acting in movies and doing peculiar stuff like that. So hopefully you'll enjoy this. It's a nice little supplemental to go and tack on to the end of the Shaun of the Dead episode, number 55. And I hope you enjoy it. I had fun doing it. And here we are. Here's Tim.
Hello.
Hello, sir. How are you?
I'm good. Is that working good? Is it?
That is working beautifully. Thank you. Yes.
1 2 1 2. Yeah, that's good. Okay, that works well. Righty-ho.
I basically wanted to chat to you about your experience and recollection, such as it is from Shaun of the Dead. We're quite a few years on. It's quite shocking, actually, when you look back at the photos of everything, realise how young everybody was and how much we didn't know.
How much hair? I've got. Even you've got quite a bit more.
I've got hair, no beard. I'm much slimmer. I don't appear to have glasses in a lot of the shots. I look very healthy, but you don't recall feeling that way at the time. Or I didn't, anyway.
To be honest, I don't know that I've ever felt particularly healthy. God, you know what?
Well, you will get up to things.
I've had more self-induced coronavirus panic attacks in this lockdown on account of having had 3 hangovers in rapid succession. I've not had a hangover in ages, but all this sitting still and drinking heavily.
That's an excellent plan.
Yeah, well, it is, but also it causes something of an alarm when you wake up in the middle of the night feeling like
you forget.
Yeah.
Oh shit.
Yeah. And then you're like, oh, hold on a minute, I remember this. This is a hangover.
So, the idea is basically I want to do an episode of the podcast where we were looking back at all the stuff that we did on Shaun of the Dead, and obviously one of the sort of big scenes that was quite remarkable was a young chap getting his head stoved in.
Yes.
Which was you, I believe. And so it was one of those things where I thought, I wonder if Tim would be happy to chat on the podcast about that. You know, it's the first time a zombie actually comes into the house and the outside has crept in, because before there was sort of stuff outside that they were going to tackle and they'd seen it a bit, but nothing had actually come into their house, and it was all sort of a bit of a change. And then you get twatted on the head with a big ashtray, which was quite a thing. Can you...
The ashtray, yeah, that's right, yeah. Well, I mean, this was my first film, so it was quite a landmark thing for me. And also, this scene went on to be quite sort of significant for me because they used it in the trailer. And back then, certainly, I still am a bit now, but I'm still slightly in a sort of superstitious idea, is that I don't talk too much about a production before it's all done in the canon and released, because there's nothing worse than running around telling everybody, oh, I'm going to be in this new movie, and then when the final edit comes out, you're not in it. And this film, I mean, I really, as well as being my first film, I think it was possibly only my second acting job, my second filming job. And landing this partner with those guys who I knew from and adored from watching Spaced was really a very exciting thing for me.
I think because you and I both have very similar tastes in the things we enjoy. It's a real kick, isn't it, when you... to work on something with people that you actually like and admire beforehand, so it's quite nice.
Yeah, it was. And with Shaun of the Dead, it sort of sneaked up on me a bit because the contact for it came to me from you.
Yeah. Well, I was in a meeting and they said, we need a guy who's missing an arm. And I was like, I kind of know a guy that's perfect
well,
for the
we've
part.
met.
Was your first thing, on Strange?
Strange, that's right, yeah. and we got to know
As
each
in, that
other.
was the name of the show, in case anyone's
Yeah.
thinking it was strange that we met. The name of the show was Strange. It was a BBC show with Richard Coyle. It was called Strange. It was about paranormal stuff. Yeah.
And we got to know each other with me standing there in a jockstrap and you spending about 5 to 6 hours each morning sticking prosthetics all over me.
Nothing to do with the job, just for jollies.
Nothing to do with the show. That was just, how we met.
Absolutely.
On
Craigslist.
Yeah. But yeah, and well, that was kind of a make or break, isn't it? We found we got along well. So
Yeah.
yeah, and then as you say, I remember you told me subsequently that you'd had the meeting. So they got in touch with me. I didn't hear about the movie being made. I didn't hear about castings or apply for anything. I just got this contact and said, would I be interested in this part in a zombie movie? And I thought, well, yeah, great. And that's through some sides through that came through. And I looked at those and it said on it, Simon Pegg and Edgar Wright. And I thought, oh, wow, this is the guys from Spaced. And I looked at the bit, I've not got a whole script. I think I just got a bit of it. And I thought, oh my gosh, they must be making a film for television. I just, kind of assumed it would be, it was something for television. I knew nothing about it, had heard nothing about it. And then I went along and did the casting, and it was a group casting and a little bit, I think, some one-on-one. And then I got a call back, which was with Edgar, and I didn't know it, but by that time they'd already decided they liked the look of me. And Edgar and I just had a one-on-one, and we just clowned around. And I chased him around. He was holding a handheld, and he was saying, "Come at me slowly, right? Lunge at me." And yeah, we were just really goofing around. And that was when he was sort of sizing up that scene, and they kind of wrote that scene, created that scene. It came out of the one-on-ones that I had with Edgar. And came up with that line. The last time I saw Simon Pegg, which was years ago, but he said that's always been his favourite line. He's got arm off, and doing his jazz hands. And what happened was when that movie was released, and again, I didn't tell anybody, you didn't absolutely have to know about this, I was in this movie, until the trailer came out, and they used it, that clip from the scene with that line, he's got his arm off, in the trailer in the UK and the international release. And I started getting text messages on my phone. People were just messaging me, he's got his
People
arm
you
off.
knew, or they were just tracking you down? Because that's quite creepy otherwise.
Yeah. There were people I knew, but who knew nothing about it. And also at this stage, an awful lot of people didn't know that I was acting. Because as I say, I think this was only my second acting job. And so there were people who were seeing this video, seeing the trailer for it, and of course they're looking at it thinking, that bloke looks just like Tim. And interestingly, he's missing a left arm as well. Bloody hell, he didn't tell me about this. And yeah, they were just texting me that line from the movie. And it's before hashtags became a hashtag, it was a hashtag just about.
Yeah, no, that's true.
Yeah, it was a very big deal for me. It was an exciting thing to be involved in that. And great fun, of course, to be working with you again, because we had such a laugh on Strange, sticking all that stuff all over me. So yeah, it was brilliant fun. I really enjoyed it.
Amazing. How many days did you shoot in that suit? Because obviously we see you before you become a zombie in the store, and eagle-eyed viewers, you'll see it because you're seen first off from the right-hand side. You're standing side on the aisle, and then very carefully, sort of camera angle, you're in the line behind him, aren't you? And his head is obscuring your left shoulder, so that the gag isn't given away beforehand. Is that right? I think that's the way it's framed.
That's right. Gosh, now I'm trying to remember. I know there was the location filming, and that was, I think we did that all in a day, didn't we? On Sunday, early Sunday morning.
Yeah, I would think they want to.
And I think that was all done in the day. And yeah, there was me sort of pre-zombie mode in the shop in the background, and then they shot. Gosh, I think there was a bit of me wandering about outside. Again, I'm just in the background. You have to be really eagle-eyed, but you see me pre-zombie mode in the background in the shop, and then after he's come out the shop, I think can't remember now. But yeah, I do remember me also being in zombie mode and doing some stuff in the street. There was a bit where I'm walking down the street.
Awesome.
Yeah, because I can remember being stood at the side of the road in full zombie get-up, and as the day was moving on, I mean, we must have started filming it somewhere around about 4:30 on a Sunday morning.
Wow.
Just when we've really first got the light, and of course there's nobody about, and they got the streets blocked off, but every now and then, they block them off, shoot the filming, and then they open it up again, and so there'd be road traffic, and a bit of pedestrian people wandering through. Yeah, and I can remember lurking around on the pavement and appearing from between parked cars, lumbering towards moving traffic and things. It was great fun.
Covered in blood.
With kids in the back. Yeah. Oh, yeah, in the full get-up.
Fantastic.
Arm off, that whole thing. And there were kids in the backs of cars who were just going bananas. They loved it, screaming and shouting and pointing out the windows.
Fantastic. It's like Halloween in May.
Yeah. But I think we did all that location external stuff in one day, or certainly the bits that I did, we did it in one day. But then the scene in the living room, that was filmed on the set at Ealing Studios. I think we might have been 2 or 3 days on that. And I remember it was hotter than the cheap seats in hell. It was a day that we set some new world record. It was global warming before it was trendy. It was before they'd heard about it in Shoreditch, and we hit the hottest temperature in London for something like I don't know, 100 odd years or something. It was some new record, and we were inside the studios, but the studios were lit to appear like daylight. Yeah. So they got that huge white lighting that was just cooking everybody. Yeah. And at that point, the filming, I remember now, the location filming that I did, that was on almost, I think, the first day of filming for the movie. And then the filming where we were doing the scene in the living room with a big fire where I get my head stoved in, that was almost the end of filming. So it was almost about 3 months later that we're actually filming the bit inside the room. And at that point, because in that film, I think Simon is in pretty much every scene. There's hardly anything that he isn't in camera. And so he had been working tremendously hard, non-stop, just about for 2.5, 3 months. And with the heat and everything, he actually looked more like a zombie than I did. And I think on the second day of filming, we got most of what we needed. And he was not looking well at all. And I remember Edgar just say to him, "Go to your dressing room, go and lie down, because you do not look well at all."
Wow.
And so Simon was dispatched to his dressing room. But I do remember it being so hot. And I was wearing a 3-piece wedding suit, plus all that gunk that you're always sticking on me, Stuart.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, there was all that stuff I got, and then as well for this scene where I get my head stoved in, I got to wear that rig for all my brains blowing.
Yeah,
out.
now that's an interesting point.
Hot work, I remember.
All that, because the I think Dan Fry made the stuff for that, because I wasn't there. There was a big chunk of time where I was away. I went overseas for a bit, and I think that would have been Dan, I think, that worked on that. So could you talk a little bit, just from what you recall, about how the head stoving thing, because it's such a quick thing in the shot, but it's always that weird thing where before you actually film it, you're not exactly sure what they're going to see, so they have to make something, that's going to do a lot more than you end up seeing, because inevitably they want something that they can cut down. So there's always a lot more involved in something than you actually see in the final edit. And I know there was brains and stuff that involved, but it's not necessarily obvious when you look at it. But I know that when you drop out a frame, it's this horrible sort of scene where it's just like your head's, open up apparently, and it's spread out all over the place.
That's right.
But they don't show it, which I think is probably the right thing to do. It doesn't need to be that gory at this stage. Because I'm trying to think, is this before or after we see Mary? I think it's before.
It's before. I believe I'm actually the first
That's right.
full-on zombie.
That's right, because
kill.
they don't want to
Yeah.
get any blood on you. I remember them talking about that they didn't want to get any blood on you. Because any of your blood on him, because obviously he's wearing a white shirt. It's just like, and that's a continuity nightmare if he's got a big splat of red that he's then got to have,
Yeah.
because he's supposed to be clean when he goes out into the garden, I think. So, yeah. So it's the first kind of like kill, the first zombie kill. So,
Yeah.
with a big ashtray, which is nasty.
Hello, fact-checking Bellend here. We actually see Mary in the garden first, then the hulking zombie, and then we see Tim as the zombie groom when he comes into the house. Thank you.
There were a couple of things I remember that from that. First off, there's a bit where Simon and Nick were throwing things at me, and they were grabbing things off the coffee table and throwing them at me, and they were all soft props, which are great, wonderfully convincing. They got like a game console handset and all sorts of things, but that look absolutely like the real thing, but when they actually hit you in the face, they feel like bath sponges. And they were throwing all those things at me. Now, at first, we had a go with me wearing a mask on my face. It was a bit like something out of Phantom of the Opera, because although the soft props were really soft, but also they were throwing, I think they had a pizza box, which was just actually cardboard. But trying to do it with that mask on was tough. And so we changed the approach a bit on that, and they were throwing things, but they did the camera angle so that they didn't actually have to be throwing them particularly close to me. But it looked like they were throwing things at my face from the angle that they were shooting at. But yeah, then we had to do this thing with the kill where I get smacked on the head with the ashtray. And
it's a big ashtray as well. For people that haven't seen it, for shame if you haven't seen it, but it's one of those sort of 70s, it's like 2.5 pounds of glass. It's just a hefty, the size of a house brick.
And we could only really, I can't remember. I think we only did that. We did that shot in one take because it was such a rig. I had to wear this device where it had sort of got kind of pneumatic kind of pumps, actuators on it, which set off the whole business of my brains coming out. So it was really quite a complicated thing to do. And I also remember it wasn't so much that it was heavy particularly, although it's kind of a bit odd because you're wearing all this on your head, so you're carrying extra weight in a place you wouldn't ordinarily be wearing it. It was like, I suppose it was a little bit like I was wearing a motorcycle helmet, but a particularly heavy one. And then I got all this rig that I'm wearing strapped on around my body, plus all this suit and everything else, and also by this stage in the proceedings, I'm covered in that much sweat and glue and junk that I really did feel like I was, like I was a roast chicken in the oven wrapped in tinfoil and marinated in all manner of junk and sweat.
Helped you get into the part.
Oh God, yeah, I was method zombie certainly. So yeah, it was hard work, and I remember feeling well and truly exhausted by the close of play on doing that.
Sorry about that. You were the man for the job, though.
It's all part of it. I mean, invariably, whatever I'm doing, whatever acting job I'm doing, I invariably end up in all kinds of rigs and things because I'm always doing, I don't know, science fiction and horror and stuff like that. God, the worst one ever, slightly tangential, but the worst one ever was Doctor Who when you put me in a Cyberman outfit. And of course, I'm about an inch taller than the official Cyberman height. So
you're a rogue unit.
Getting into the costume, I was it felt absolutely like I'd been put in a suitcase. I couldn't even breathe deeply. I was panting like a Jack Russell while I was in that outfit.
I have worn one of those suits. Neil Gorton and I wore one for a photo shoot we did at the workshop, and I tried one on, and they are quite claustrophobic. I mean, if you're worried, if you suffer from things like claustrophobia. It's quite, you can't really get yourself out. You know, you need help, and it's all sort of clipped
Well, it's
in.
not so much, I'm not claustrophobic particularly, but I am a big fan of breathing. I do like to do that a lot.
Yes,
To be honest, I'm pretty much a
an air addict.
non-stop user of breathing, and and it was difficult in that thing. I mean, you're about the right height for a Cyberman, wasn't it? I mean, I know you explained at the time. I was when you trial fitted me in one of those, you're explaining to me that it was a decision that all the Cybermen were going to be the same height, because obviously it makes perfect
Yeah,
sense
they're going to be
for
uniform.
the backstory of the characters. So you just always cast, when you wanted actors to be Cybermen, you always cast them they had to be whatever it was, 5'11" or 6 foot dead. That was a requirement for being in the role. But then when you needed a Cyberman with an arm missing, that's when it got a bit tricky.
There's not too many of those kicking around, yeah.
Not too many of those kicking around. So oh well, Tim, he's 6'1", he'll fit.
Just shoehorn him in there, take out a vertebrae or something, and just kind of compress
Yeah,
him.
that next time, that's what we do. Yes, just
A human
lob
Lego.
out one of those. Just chop me off at the ankles.
Yeah.
I'll be fine.
I was trying to think. I remembered something else that we did together was a Toyota commercial. Do you remember that at Pinewood?
That was brilliant. I loved it. You know what? I've never actually seen the original. I never saw the finished product.
It's online, and I tell you, do you know who the guy is that's in it? The main guy.
I can't remember.
It was
now,
Murray.
God,
You know
who is it?
Murray from the Concords, that New Zealand guy.
Oh God, yes.
And I watched it. I watched
Yeah.
it recently, and I was like, "Oh my God, that's it!" I can't remember his name. I'm going to get shouted at now for not having looked it up. But I didn't think we were going to mention this. But I suddenly remembered, that we spent 2 or 3 nights. It was a night shoot at Black Park around the back of Pinewood Studios, and you were this creature that had this kind of tendrils where the arms
You
were.
made me the most fantastic outfit. I mean, that was the best outfit I've ever got to wear.
Thank you. That was good
I
fun.
mean, being a Cyberman was super cool, obviously. That was just too cool for school, being a Cyberman in Doctor Who. But that costume for just full-on lunacy was the best. I've still got the teeth for that, because you let me keep the teeth.
Amazing.
I mean, detail. You did that whole. You made me the piranha dentures.
Oh, that would have been Chris Lyons that made the dentures. I think I may have. Yeah, I made I made the costume and the eyes, but anything in the teeth that would have been Chris. So and he's been on the podcast.
Yeah, you guys really went to town on that. You went the whole 9 yards. And Fish Boy, as I affectionately know him, that one huge claw and all the rest of it. That was just
it was
brilliant.
good fun. It was really good fun, and he had a kind of, because the eyes were so big, it has a kind of childlike kind of sweetness about it in a weird kind of way, despite being quite creepy.
Well, I mean, you did it. It was exactly as the whole thing, wasn't it? The idea was that it was like a cheesy B movie, and so you did the costume very much in that style of those sort of American 50s B movie things, and it just worked so brilliantly. It was great. I loved it.
That's so cool. Oh, I'm glad you remember that, because that was just something that had slipped out of my mind. I wasn't going to mention it because it hadn't popped in my head, but I'll have to stick some pictures of that in the blog post about that, because that was a lot of fun. That was a lot of work as well, actually.
It was, yeah. I've got one photo from that.
I've got more,
which is absolutely.
I should give you.
Have you?
Yeah, I'll send you
I'd
some.
love to see those. We'll swap photos on that. That'd be great.
Wicked, man. But I didn't know.
But the arm. No, obviously, I'm not even slightly coy about that. I mean, that's what got me into acting. That's my joke is that I got into acting by accident. Literally, I fell off my motorbike, lost my arm, and then got discovered by a BBC casting director who said, "You'd be useful. I need an amputee every now and then," and I got cast into Strange. But that was a friend of mine, Sarah Wilcott, who is a casting director for the BBC, but she's also a very keen and very accomplished ballroom dancer, and we knew each other from ballroom dancing.
That's right. Yeah, for those that don't know you, you are a ballroom dancer. You do a lot of dancing. Well, you did up until the COVID thing.
I do. Yes, yeah.
But yeah.
Argentine tango, swing jazz, salsa, all of it. Yeah, I'm OCD. I'm an obsessive compulsive dancer.
Wow.
But Sarah knew me from a ballroom dancing many years ago. We'd be, in the same class in social dancing on Monday nights at the Rivoli Ballroom. And she knew me before I had the accident. I had the accident, I lost my arm. I was out of things for about, I think it was probably somewhere between 9 months and a year before I got back to my dancing. But I got back to it and sort of kind of relearned it, dancing without a left arm. And one evening, Sarah said to me, have you done any acting or thought about doing any acting? I said, no. And she said, well, you know what I do? I said, yeah, where are we going? And she said, well, I get casting calls where I need amputee actors, but there aren't that many. And she said, I know you're good with taking direction on movement, obviously with the dancing. I thought if you would be interested in doing some acting, I might be able to find you some work.
Amazing.
And about 3 months later or so, she cast me straight into a character acting role in Strange.
That's so funny.
And that was it. Never looked back.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's amazing how things work out. Isn't that lovely?
I know. I mean, that was an extraordinary story. That I didn't have to go for a casting. I just got a call from the casting director. I mean, well, Sarah was casting for it, so she knew who I was when she saw the script, and they needed a character with they got a character with no left arm, and not only that, but a high amputation. He'd be missing from the shoulder. She's like, I know who this is, and she told the director. He just gave me a call. And we chatted on the phone, and that was it. I got a script, and actually I went up to, that was Millennium FX. It was there, wasn't it? You did a full body cast on me.
Yeah, we did.
You took.
And I remember you'd driven up,
body
and you had
cast.
a really nice old sports car.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, my little hairdryer, the MX-5. Yeah, and yeah, you did a full body prosthetic cast on me, and then my first day acting, there I am at Ealing Studios, and I was in a dressing room, and you guys, it took close on 6 hours to put me. There was you got a team of about 4, haven't you?
Yeah, something like that. And it was a full body. It was
There was
legs,
about
arm,
4 of you.
makeup.
I remember Sunita, lovely Sunita, was standing there sticking
Yes,
things
she
all
did
over
some
me.
stuff on Shaun the Dead as well. And yeah, and then I think there were 2 teams, because there was also the other guy that had some prosthetics on his neck as well that I think maybe Rob did at the same time, I think, because we splintered off into another group because you were doubling you were the Car Jin. That was the name of the character, wasn't it? He was like this kind
That's right, yeah.
sort of almost assembled man made up of different parts, and it wasn't quite finished, hence the arm missing. And then there was a guy who was a reverend or something.
It was sort of like Sweeney Todd, wasn't
Yeah.
it? It was a Sweeney Todd tattooist who
That's
was
right. Yeah, it was a tattoo on
chopping
different
up
limbs.
his customers.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he had the tip-up chair and everything. It was very Sweeney Todd, and he was cutting up his customers and then sticking the bits together to make this demon.
And we had this other thing, this curious thing that always happens with creature suits, which is something not many people are going to think about. But when you sculpt a complete body on a creature, the question always arises: do you give the creature genitals? Because if you do they need to be creature genitals? And if there's an absence of genitals, is that obvious, given that they are humanoid and there should be something there? So I think with as is often the case, they settled on some kind of loinclothy thing. Not that a creature would have, any kind of like concerns about how it would appear, but it was I remember like a red loinclothy thing, not too dissimilar to a sumo-y type affair.
That's right, yeah, had a kind of sumo wrestler kind of rig on.
But the thing is, if you...
I do remember, but on a very closely related vein, I remember you guys put me into this thing, and me saying to you, you know what, I am actually going to need to have a pee at some point. You completely failed to leave any access.
Yes, I hadn't been doing the job very long, and my lack of experience had meant that there was no. I hadn't accounted for that, and I think we just ended up cutting a hole. I mean, fortunately, there was
that's right.
That sort of nappy thing that kind of covered everything anyway, so it wasn't a problem. But we had to.
And I remember holding my breath, saying, "Yeah, be careful." You went in there with an enormous, great craft knife. Don't worry, we'll cut you a hole.
It'll be fine.
Yeah.
The things you've got to do, eh?
But yeah, and I remember also that you were keeping me secret as well because you were doing that thing, which again, I didn't know. I've just learned all this acting stuff on the job, but doing this trick of not letting the rest of the cast see what I looked like. So, you get that kind of a bit of kind of genuine reaction when I show up on set.
Yes.
And yeah, and you were keeping me in that room. And anybody who knocked on the door, it's like, no, you're not allowed in.
That's right. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Oh dear.
And so I was kept in there. I was in that room, and it was close on 6 hours sticking all that stuff on me.
Yeah.
And then when you took me down to the studio to shoot, we're walking along the corridors, and I was a little nervous, just And it's my very first acting job, my very first time on set and taking directions and being filmed and everything. And I know I'm going to meet Samantha Janice and Richard Coyle, and I'm going to go down and meet them and be acting
Looking
with them.
like this.
Holy crap. And I'm walking along the corridors, and of course the corridors in there are just lined with photos of all the greats of British cinema. And I can remember walking along there thinking, what am I doing here? What's gone wrong? What am I doing here? Being an actor, this can't be right.
Mate, I know the feeling. I know the feeling. And I've been at Ealing a fair few times, and every time I'm in there, I'm like, oh my god, this is Ealing Studios is like one of the classic British studios, and it's just
I know
so many
it's
cool
like
things.
You're on Mount Olympus and you're walking amongst the gods.
Some ghastly error. I shouldn't be here.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was cool. And I think you had lenses as well, didn't you? So that must have compromised your vision to some degree. Did you wear the lenses? I know the actor had to, and maybe you had to as well, because you were doubling.
I did for some shots. They were tough though. Had really restricted field of view. I think I only wore them for the sort of close-up shots, because in the wider shots where it's the whole of the fight going on, I was doing quite a lot of movement where I scramble out of the hole in the floor. As I remember, I come out from under the chair and I grab Richard Coyle by the neck and pick him up and throttle him a bit, and then I threw him against the wall, held him up against the wall, that kind of stuff. And I think for that, I don't think I was wearing the contact lenses for that, because I really had really restricted vision.
Yeah, you got marks to hit, and you don't want to actually harm anybody. Oh my gosh, yeah, it's coming back to me now. Oh my god, yeah. It's brilliant. It was so much fun. It was a nice shoot, actually. It was a nice show.
It was, yeah. And I remember between takes and setup and stuff, and I was sitting in one of the little chairs, and I was sitting there with Samantha Janice, and I was saying that I remembered seeing her at the, I think it was at the Apollo in Greece when she must have been about 19 or something, and she was laughing and she's going, I can still remember all those songs, and then proceeded to sing each of the songs from Greece to me.
Who did she play? She played Sandy.
While they were setting up the next shot.
No, she was Kaniki. She was a leather jacket.
And I just thought, holy crow, how did this happen? Because I actually had a full-time job at that point. I got a day job, and I'd just taken a holiday or thrown sickie or something to do the days that I was filming. And I was earning more money in a day than I was earning in a month in the day job. And I'm sitting there with Samantha Janice singing Grease to me, and I thought, wow, this is all right.
That's awesome. She was in the first movie that I ever worked on as well, working for Neil Gorton, and I think it was 95, 96, something like that. It was a film called Breeders, and it wasn't a damning indictment on parents. It was.
I
do you remember
that one? Yeah.
Yeah, it had Oliver Tobias in it, and it was shot on the Isle of Man. It's this creature suit, and there was a guy in it, Clifton, I think his name was Clifton Lloyd Bryan, I think, or Bryant, and he ended up being one of the guys in the big metallic suits in The Fifth Element as well. But he was a good laugh. Yeah, he played the creature, and yeah, Samantha Janice was. I mean, if you watched it now, I mean, it's all kinds of politically wrong. It's just there are some scenes in there where I won't even repeat now. It was just unbelievable. They could get away with that. Yeah, it's such a bad film, but it's a lot of fun. But you've got to work on this. you got to work on these. And I did mention that to her, and she was like, rolled her eyes about it. I'm like, yeah, we've all done these shameful things, but we had to pay the bills. So B-movie classics.
Indeed.
Tim, I think I kind of rinsed you for all of that. That's so nice. And I've got all these pictures I'll have to send you, because I have the pictures of the sea creaturey things. And you sent me some lovely pictures of the Shaun thing, which is nice.
From Shaun, yeah.
Amazing. I'll have to send you...
Again, there was contacts in and contacts out for that one, because the contacts, they were gruesome things.
Yeah, they're not very nice at all. No. Well, although you've been beautifully entertaining with it, and there's been loads of things in there that I kind of forgotten or didn't know. It was really good. It was a really, really nice chat.
Excellent. Oh, good. Yeah, I'm glad you. I mean, it is great. Well, we sit and chat about these things because we trigger each other's memory. So there's things that you mention, and I'm like, oh God, yes, I've forgotten all about that, and likewise in return.
Oh, well, the thing is, I'd forgotten that we'd done so many things together as well. Because you kept mentioning something, oh yeah, we did do that. I'm like, how the hell fuck do you build an entire creature suit, and that goes out your mind? But
well, honestly, it felt so. I got more work from you than I did from my agent.
Where's my 15%?
Because there was the Toyota advert. That was another one. That you went. You said to him, "Oh yeah, don't worry, I've got somebody who can do that," and promptly cast me into it.
Amazing. Oh God, that's so cool. It's lovely these things happen. Yeah. It's all. I mean, I had so much fun. I remember being to Millennium when it was in Chesham, and we did some stuff. We did a couple of live casts for. What did we do it for? Oh, it was for a TV show called Hex, and then we had live cast the head and torso, I think, of Michael Fassbender before he was Michael Fassbender, and so he had not been in anything really at that time, and he was a good fun. And then he was a couple of years later, he was in 300, and he was again not that well known at this point, but he'd been working out for a while. He'd been boxing training for a year, I think, to get into shape, and he got on the train to Amersham, I think, and I had to go and pick him up in the Peugeot. And bring him back, and it's just quite funny to think like how times have changed. I'm pretty sure Michael Fassbender wouldn't get the train to Amersham now, and I pick him up in my 12-year-old Peugeot. But there we go.
Oh God, yeah, extraordinary, weird, totally unplanned, unexpected chapter in my life. The acting stuff. I mean, just doing Friday night dinner, that was such a hoot, and of course that's been, I suppose, fairly huge exposure for me, because it's well respected and big viewing figures for that thing.
It's a good show. It's well written, and it's well cast, and it's also one of those shows that doesn't scream and shout for attention. It just kind of gets watched by the right people that would like it. It's not one of those kind of like prime timey kind of like the ones that beat their chest and don't give up. It's a really, really well done show.
And I have to say that ordinarily, well, I always do. I always squirm at watching myself afterwards, watching myself act. And I always think, oh, God, Tim, why did you do it like that for? That was rubbish. But, of course, that's, doesn't everybody do that to some degree?
Yeah, no, I think that's
But I must say, watching that back, watching Friday Night Dinner, I did. I thought, oh, yeah, actually looked like you knew what you were doing there. And realised as well that I'd really worked my face. I did all my expressions in that one.
I have yet to watch that one. You did tell me about it, but I will watch it, because we do watch that show. We'll watch it on Catch Up.
All right, yeah. What I did was I played it back, and I just did screen grabs from the scene with me. I was just letting it play, and I was just hitting the keys and just bang, 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 grabbed a load of random pictures, and then sorted through them and post them onto Facebook. And it was when I'd done that, I realised, I looked through all these pictures, that, wow, I pretty much did all the faces I've got there, I think. Posted that on Faceache, and I said, oh yeah, this is me doing some acting. I was really good. I did all my faces. Yeah, I was quite pleased with it. I thought, yeah, that's all right. And also, all my mates are, again, they're like, bloody hell, you've got loads of lines and everything, Tim. I'm like, yeah, I know.
It's like, you're acting. What are you doing? I'm acting, mate.
It still catches I mean, even close friends who know that I do this and have seen all sorts of things I've done before. They're still a bit freaked out by it when they actually see me on telly doing acting. Like, bloody hell, he really does do that. He's not bullshitting. There are stories with all those. Like I say, more often than not, I am in all kinds of rig. I mean, 2 Doctor Who's in full battle dress of one sort or another. And it's for weeks afterwards. I'm picking the junk out of my hair. And also, you learn the trick pretty early on that you shave before you guys come throwing the plaster all over me.
Best. Yeah, it comes off
bloody
nice
hell.
and easy.
It's the old full body prosthetic. That is the biggest, most major league exfoliation thing you ever undergo.
Yes, it would.
Never mind back, sack, and crack. You want to get the full body.
Yeah, you sit there in a bath of fried chickens trying to get it off.
When we were doing that strange, it took about 2 hours to get me out of this stuff.
Yeah, it was a big old suit. I mean, it's the kind of thing where, depending on how you make the suit, if there's more time, you can make a suit that sort of zips up and, fits because it's compression and, all that kind of stuff. But this was more of a... not all of it was... Was it all glued on head to toe? Was it the chest was, I think, to stop it buckling and doing weird things? The face definitely was. I'd wondered if we got any of it like snug on the legs, but there was a fair bit of glue on everything, I think.
Yeah, it was all. I was well and truly glued up. I can remember.
Sorry, man.
And I got all those because, of course, the face you were making me look like the Reverend.
That's right. Yes, so it was a likeness makeup.
So you had lots of little separate pieces to make my face into his. I remember when he was dead, when he was wrapped, he came up and knocked on the door, and you said, "Are you wrapped?" And he goes, "Yeah, I'm dead. They're done now." And he said, "Oh, you can come in." And he came in and looked in the mirror, and I was sitting there looking in the mirror, and he stood alongside me, and we looked at each other in the mirror, and that was freaky.
Yeah.
Because, of course, I hadn't seen him and he hadn't seen me. So there we were looking at each other, and we were twins. We were identical.
Amazing.
That was pretty trippy.
Awesome. This has been so nice. Oh, my God, I'm all excited, Ian. I forget about all these shows.
I can think about that as
years.
Yeah, and well, I've ended up with loads of stories from all of this. I mean, I love the fact I've still got those piranha teeth that you guys did for me for the Fish Boy outfit. They're vicious. When I was wearing those, I've got to be really careful not to bite my face off. And I've still got them tucked away somewhere in the little box that I came in. Yeah, the proper little denture box.
They still fit?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, and I thought actually what I should do is I should put them in a glass of water and just leave them by my bed.
Yeah, it could be your nighttime little nightstand teeth. Scare away any would-be burglars. Tim, I think that's been perfect. Thank you very much for your time, sir. I appreciate it.
Hey, no problem. But the deal is now you must curate. We'll get together on Skype or WhatsApp or whatever and have a booze up, a few of us.
That sounds great. Remote hammer time.
Wouldn't it? Absolutely.
Okay.
That'd be brilliant.
Right. Deal. That sounds very good.
Excellent. Because, I'd love to speak to Dan. God, I haven't seen Dan since I did that zombie flick with him. It was Zombies in Ibiza or something. That was it. Independent. It was kind of like the in-betweeners.
Right, but with zombies.
Go on holiday and get attacked by zombies. Go raving in Ibiza and which was it ought to have been so naff and so bad, but actually it was really rather good. I went to the screening of it and it worked. I just thought, oh man, I'm not sure this is going to be like this. I'm going to find this a bit cringy, but actually I thought it was really fun. It was certainly fun working on it.
Amazing. Oh, what fun.
So anyway, what are you going to get me in next? You haven't got me a movie in ages now, actually.
No,
Stuart,
I've been letting the side down.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'll let you know as soon as a script lands on my door.
I know it's all a bit quiet at the moment, isn't it?
It is rather. Yeah, the show I was on was really good fun as well, and that's all sort of dried up for a bit. But I'm sure things will pick up eventually. Thank you so much, Tim. I appreciate your time.
No, at all. Thank you, Stuart. It's been great fun.
You can get in touch through our Facebook page or email us at stuartandtodd@gmail.com. Check the show notes for more information. If you enjoyed this episode, tell someone else and help us grow by sharing it on social media. Thanks for listening.